All right, let's just dive right into this. Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we are unpacking a dynamic in the dating world that is, well, it's incredibly common, but honestly, completely misunderstood. If you have ever crossed paths with a guy who seems totally immune to typical romantic signals, or maybe if you are that guy currently putting your head down to work, you are in the exact right place. We are breaking down the fascinating psychology of men who prioritize their purpose over romance.
Section 1. The ignoring misconception.
You know the sentiment, right? You hear it all the time. Some men just don't seem to care about girls. And man, that feels incredibly personal. When someone just isn't responding to flirtation or romantic overtures, the natural assumption is that they are actively shutting you out. But the source material reveals that this assumption completely misses the mark.
Here is the major paradigm shift we need to make today. There is a massive difference between actively putting up a hand to ignore someone and simply prioritizing your own path. It's not this malicious act of exclusion. It is actually an act of intense, singular focus. They aren't looking past you. They're looking directly at their own future.
So where exactly is all that focus going instead? Well, their true north consists of four main pillars: themselves, their goals, their growth, and their life. When a guy is deep in the trenches building his foundation, his bandwidth for external distractions, even really appealing romantic ones, literally drops to near zero. Every single ounce of his energy is being poured into his own personal evolution.
Moving on to Section 2, the psychology of security.
So, what's the actual internal engine driving this intense self-focus? Why don't they feel that nagging need to go out and seek romance? It boils down to a core concept pulled straight from the research: psychological security. Basically, it's the state of not seeking validation from attention or relationships. Let's be real, for a lot of people, dating is about validation. It's about knowing you're desired. But these guys, they simply don't require external romantic validation to feel whole. Their validation comes from crossing off their own milestones.
Now, it's super easy to look at a guy who doesn't need external attention and mistake that lack of neediness for loud, desperate arrogance. But there is a crucial distinction here. Arrogance desperately needs an audience, right? But confidence? Confidence is quiet, it's steady, it's grounded. It means they don't have to constantly test the dating market just to prove their worth to themselves.
Which brings us to Section 3, the interaction twist.
And here is where it gets really interesting, because once you understand this quiet confidence, the way you actually interact with this type of person becomes a whole new ballgame. Think about all the standard dating advice out there. You know, the games, the push and pull, agonizing over waiting exactly 3 days to text back, all the subtle ways people try to force someone to notice them.
If you try those typical strategies, it absolutely backfires. Trying to force a hyper-focused man to notice you by playing hard to get, or on the flip side, by chasing him aggressively, it just registers as an unwanted distraction. The only strategy that actually succeeds is genuine connection. If you align with his values and offer a real connection that doesn't derail his path, that is when his attention naturally and willingly shifts. They respond to authenticity for sure, not tactics.
Section 4. Timing and future love.
So, this brings up the most natural follow-up question, right? Does that mean they'll never be in a relationship? It's a totally valid thing to wonder. If a guy is so wrapped up in his own growth and so incredibly secure flying solo, is romance just off the table forever? The answer, straight from the source material, is a resounding no. Of course not. Romance absolutely isn't dead for these men. It hasn't been permanently deleted from their life plan. It has simply been scheduled for a different time.
Let's walk through how this actually plays out in reality. Phase 1 is simply to grow, building the skills, building the mindset. Phase 2 is achieving those goals, establishing a bedrock of real success and stability. And only after that do we arrive at Phase 3, making the girl they love feel like a princess. They want to offer their partner a fully realized version of themselves. They're getting ready to provide and protect out of a sense of abundance, not distraction.
So I want to turn this over to you, the viewers. Ladies, would you wait for a man focused on his goals? Knowing what you know now, that his distance isn't about ignoring you, but about building a rock-solid foundation he can eventually share, does that change your timeline? Does it change your patience with a guy who's on his purpose?
And flipping the mirror onto the guys watching this explainer, would you focus on yourself first before love? Is securing your own path and building that unshakable psychological security worth putting romance on hold for a bit? It's a pretty profound question about priorities and what it truly means to be ready for a genuine connection. Think about where you are on that timeline. Thank you so much for diving into this fascinating topic with me, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.